Castles and caving, music and mountains. We saw it all during a whirlwind 2-week adventure in Scotland. And in this video, I'll take you along with us and show you the art I made that was inspired by our trip. My husband and I landed in Edinburgh and explored the city. Jet-lagged and weary, we found a comfy spot at the White Hart Inn, Edinburgh's oldest pub, dating from 1516. We took a fascinating tour with the real Mary King's Close that was underneath the current city streets. The tour focused on the lives of ordinary people during the plague years and the ways the city finally rid itself of the plague. This friendly bagpiper offered a selfie. What could go wrong?
Well, that's a huge noggin. It's a virtual planetoid. Has its own weather system. Heed! Move!
We walked around a lot, our favorite pastime in a new city. We also had a great time catching a live music session at the Royal Oak, where we saw local musicians perform, as well as a band from Australia.
Oh, the summertime's come, and the trees are sweet in bloom.
Leaving Edinburgh, we drove north through the gorgeous Highlands. We toured the grounds of Balmoral Castle, a holiday residence for the Crown. I got my first peep at a Highland coo, but it was fenced off and pretty far away. Then we traveled on to Cullen on the coast, home of the famous dish, the Cullen skink. I was there to attend a 2-day plein air workshop with Sarah Burns. After the first day's workshop, there was still an amazing amount of daylight left to explore Finletter Castle. It didn't get dark until after 11 p.m. I really loved being the only ones there, free to explore these ruins and imagine long-gone enemies failing to breach the castle in this formidable terrain.
Video.
I shared my experience with Sarah Burns' plein air workshop in my last video, if you want to check it out. And here's a peek at our second day, painting on the Cullen beach. Cut. I picked up this beautiful fountain pen at the Mary King's Close store as my Scotland souvenir. so I thought it was fitting to use it in this Edinburgh-inspired spread that features the bagpiper, a little statue, and a plague doctor. Some brochures and a receipt from our favorite restaurant in Edinburgh, and I also featured the White Hart Inn. Here's a spread inspired by our drive through the Highlands and our visit to Balmoral Castle. For Cullen, I featured a self-portrait with my sketchbook on the beach, as well as Finletter Castle and the little daisies that were growing among the ruins. We headed north, way north, to Leicester, where we stayed the night in a glamping pod that was honestly more comfortable than many of the hotels I stayed in. Set deep into the quiet countryside with little lambs in our backyard. We have sheep in America, sure, but I was endlessly charmed by seeing sheep in Scotland. We hit the road for a gorgeous coastal journey across the very north of Scotland, stopping in at John O'Groats. There wasn't much to do there except take a few photos, but we did score a scone with clotted cream. How British! And the server told me I was the least fussy person she's seen. Full disclosure, I am not an unfussy person.
Hi, wee sheepies.
I had a fantastic ploughman's lunch, cheddar, onion chutney, ham, at a little restaurant we found on the way to our next destination. We toured Smooth Cave, which involved climbing down a ladder and riding a little raft underground. I'll admit it, I was a wee bit scared, but it was a really cool experience.
My little lammies.
We took a ferry to Honda Island, a nature reserve. We hiked on a 4-mile loop trail that took us to views of the cliffs and thousands of puffins and other seabirds. It was a beautiful sunny day as we hiked around this gorgeous island. After this, we were headed to a bed and breakfast on the Applecross Peninsula. We chose this spot because it was within 2 hours of our planned future destination to the Isle of Skye. But what we didn't know at the time is that it's one of the steepest roadways in all of Britain. My husband, the driver, took it in stride, but I, the mere passenger, was an absolute nervous wreck. We made it though, and we stayed in a nice little B&B. The next day, I rested a lot, but my husband went out on a little adventure of his own. Can you tell what this cool little structure is that he found while he was out exploring? I did venture out that night to try to find a standing stone that was featured on a map of the peninsula. I just knew about standing stones from the TV show Outlander, but I was determined to set my eyes on one. It was not in the spot that the map had marked, and we hiked around to stone after stone in the freezing windy hills. We had pretty much given up and were driving in the car again when my husband spotted a slab off in the distance.
Sing me a song.
Could it be? Yes.
Say, could that last be I?
We stopped in on a local weaver and I picked up some gorgeous yarn. The weaver explained that the yarn comes from their own sheep on the peninsula. I intend to do something with this yarn. I'm giving myself a deadline of having something to show you by the time this sketchbook tour rolls around, my 12th. We had dinner at a really cool restaurant inside a gorgeous walled garden. After a long day around the peninsula, there was this slight traffic jam on the road, but it soon cleared up and we settled in for the night. We had to drive out on that same terrifying road, this time in heavy fog, but I was a seasoned pro at being a passenger by then. On the incredible Isle of Skye, we headed to the northern tip and hiked at the Quay Rang, the site of an ancient landslide that created fantastical shapes. What can I say? Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. The sun held out during most of our glorious hike, and then a steady rain started falling on our return. We explored a little more on Skye and then headed on to Oban. I really loved our visit to Oban, a warm and friendly city on the sea. I even enjoyed our whiskey tasting at the Oban Distillery, even though I don't usually like whiskey. We had to have some fresh seafood, as Oban calls itself the seafood capital of Scotland, and these scallops delivered. We had a dream night, dinner at the Oban Inn while watching Wimbledon, and then live music from the local band Rock and Reel.
I've seen sunshine since I don't know when I've been stuck in for some prison. But now I can hold this lonely hold my hand, so my comfort's alright. Jesus, she is great.
We shared a table with a couple from Maryland, as well as a couple from Glasgow. Fun night. We walked along the harbor afterwards. It still wasn't dark. Oban was welcoming the Clipper Race fleet, having just crossed the Atlantic Ocean from Washington, D.C. in a race around the world. We stopped by the harbor the next morning to see the yachts. We walked around a bit in Glasgow and had an excellent dinner of small plates at a Spanish-style restaurant. Our trip was rapidly winding down, but on our way back to Edinburgh, we stopped in on the Kelpies, steel statues of horse heads that are 98 feet tall. We stayed in Juniper Falls near the airport and visited a local pub that we loved. We were there when McIntyre, a Scot whose home golf course we had driven by in Oban, won the Scottish Open. The crowd went wild. I want to thank you so much for watching. Please give a like and leave a comment below. I would love to hear any thoughts you have. Have you been to Scotland? What's your favorite thing to do there? Or would you like to go someday? Thanks again, and take care.